Okay, so thank you everybody for joining this call. My name is Kiara Gannon. I'm very excited to be talking to you guys about this topic today. It's definitely something I'm very passionate about. So I'm going to be giving a talk on iNaturalist and an overview of what it is and how you guys can be using it. So we're just going to give you a bit of background about myself, talk about iNaturalist, some of its benefits, some of its limitations, and also ways that it has been used and it might potentially be used in the future. And then I'm going to give you a quick tutorial as well at the end, just show you in real time what the web page looks like and how it can be used. And I'll have lots of time for questions at the end as well. So about myself, I am a stewardship technician with FLNRORD. I started in the Williams Lake office in March. I am interested in applied conservation and natural resource science. I'm a member of the College of Applied Biology and the Association of BC Forest Professionals. I'm in training, both as a biologist in training and a forester in training. I'm currently working in forestry. And some of my previous work has been in species at risk. I've done quite a bit of field research and biodiversity monitoring as well. And in summer 2019, I was a part of the BC Parks iNaturalist project, which is where I gained a lot of my experience with iNaturalist and how to use it. And if you have any questions for me after the presentation, you can always email me at kiara.gannon@gov.bc.ca. I'd be happy to talk to you about iNaturalist or anything else. And if you're internal, work for government, you can always message me on Skype as well. So about iNaturalist, it's a nonprofit citizen science app and web page. It is used globally, so it's not just a Canadian web page. It can be used across the whole world. So if you're on vacation, you can use it as well. My only warning against that is it might be harder to spend time with friends and family on vacation if you're using it on vacation, because you'll see so many cool things that you want to iNat. It uses artificial intelligence to suggest identifications for you. So how it works is you take a picture and then you upload it to the site, and the AI helps you narrow down at least what it could be that you're looking at. And community members upload and identify observations. So there's people who upload photos and, try to figure out what it is and identify it. And then there's also people that go in and confirm other people's observations or suggest other alternative identifications as well. So there are people who kind of focus on both. I'm a bit more of an observer, so I go out and make observations, do my best to figure out what they are, but I don't go around and do a lot of confirmations on other people's observations. When there are some people that just really like to confirm observations, especially if they have areas of expertise and they're really confident in their ID skills. It is quite an active website, so if you put photos on there and make identifications, the chances that somebody is going to go and identify your observation is quite high. There's lots of users, lots of experts, lots of non-experts, and it really just does depend on where you're uploading from, like where you took your observations, what taxa it is as well. When we were doing our run-through yesterday, I was saying, if you're uploading pictures of birds, there's all sorts of birds people who are going to ID it instantly. There's fights over who gets to ID the birds. If you're uploading more obscure things, perhaps fungi or slime mold or something like that, there's decent chance that it might not get identified, but it just depends on if experts happen to see it. And experts or anybody can subscribe to certain taxa in certain locations. So they'll actually get notifications on their feed when people make uploads of things they're interested in. So if you're just interested in grasses within 20 minutes of Williams Lake, you can subscribe to that, and then that will be what you're seeing. And that's kind of a way that people who are making identifications can see the observations. And you can, when you sign up, you can sign up on the Canadian website, so it's iNaturalist.org, but then they have different .ca, .oz, for different countries. And if you sign up through .ca, it's better for getting that information to Canadian organizations. Also, when you sign up, it will have options for photo permissions. I personally would suggest giving as much permission as possible for people to use your photos. No matter what permission you put there will always be, you will always be able to own those photos. Everybody will have to give you credit, but it just makes it easier for people to use that data. And iNaturalist provides baseline biodiversity data. That's its primary function at this point. It's just saying where things are and kind of relative abundance. So on my screen, there's an example of what it looks like when you're uploading a picture on the web page. We have Silky Beach Pea
Kiara,
here.
We only have your title picture still.
Oh, shoot. Okay. Should I maybe exit and retry?
You do have control, right? You've taken control over?
Yep. Can you see my overview now?
Nope.
I see the overview.
Yes, the overview
Okay.
and the applications. Okay, can you try changing to the next slide?
Yeah, do you see the About Me?
I do.
Okay, maybe it's everyone else and just not me, so.
No, I only see the first screen as well.
Oh.
Yeah, I see the first one as well.
If you share the presentation instead of sharing your desktop, then attendees should be able to scroll through the slides themselves.
Okay, I can try that. Okay, so share a link to the presentation in the comments, or?
No, when you click on the share button, the little monitor with the arrow going out of it, it says share PowerPoint files.
Yeah.
If you click on that one, you should be able to browse wherever it's saved and choose that, and then it shares from the file rather than sharing your desktop.
Okay.
And then it gives all the participants the arrows to toggle to the next slide. So if you don't mind people being able to toggle back and forth, so we'll see if that one works.
Yeah, okay.
I appreciate all the experts in the audience here.
Yeah, that's great to know.
I actually haven't done it myself, but it's supposed to work, and right now it says loading, so.
This did work really well yesterday on our run through, but there were only 3 of us on the call, so maybe having 10 times that amount is making it a bit more cumbersome and slow.
It might not be the number of attendees, it might be that the PowerPoint file is large. If it has lots of good quality photos in it, it could just be a large file size. So it might just take a moment or two to load.
That's the case.
And I'll just say now to all the guests that have phoned in, I have muted you just so that way any background noise isn't coming through at the end of the presentation. And if we break for questions, I will do my best to unmute everybody.
It's possible that because it's such a big PowerPoint, it might not load on here.
Well, let's give it another minute and see what happens.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting that some people could see the changing slide and others couldn't.
That happens with some regularity with my team meetings when someone's sharing. So
Okay.
It's not terribly unusual.
Got a picture here. Was your overview picture from Toe Hill?
Yes, yes, it was.
Lynn with the good observation there.
Yeah.
And she says, on a clear day. So I imagine it's cloudy there fairly regularly.
I suspect rainy in the winter.
Always rainy in Haida Gwaii. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We still have a loading screen. Did you want to try just sharing your desktop again?
Yeah, maybe I'll just do that again.
So I think yesterday you were sharing your desktop and that worked. All right.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, let's see if people can see this.
Okay, I can see it. How about everybody else?
Yeah.
Okay.
We got one yes. 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 Okay, for anyone who can't see it, I'll just ask for your patience, and you'll have to rewatch this when we do eventually put it up on YouTube. Right. Thanks, Kiara. Back to you.
Yeah, no problem.
Kiara.
Hopefully you'll be able to see it once I switch slides again too. So yeah, this is an example of what it looks like when you put up an observation. This is silky beach pea, and you can see that the AI actually suggests that quite well. It knows what this is. And then you can see that there's location and date information up in the corner. And you can also add descriptions, or you can add certain tags to it. So one thing that I use tags for is if I'm looking at sign, for example, if I'm taking a picture of scat, I will mark it as a sign, not the actual animal itself. And then if you actually go and you click on the view over by the silky beach pea, it will bring you to a page for silky beach pea. So this is the next slide now. And it's a picture of silky beach pea, and you can see when it's been observed. In the bottom, you can see that there's a map of where the silky beach pea occurs. There's a little description about it. There's taxonomy, status, and also a tab for similar species. That similar species tab is really useful to see what people have misidentified it as before as well. So let's say we clicked on taxonomy. It would bring us to this next slide where it shows the full taxonomy for silky beach pea. So even if we weren't confident that it was beach pea, we might be confident that it's a legume, for example. And then we could put it up as legume and let other people try to identify it down further. Is there any questions at this point before I move on to some of the benefits and limitations? You can just unmute yourself if possible. And
we don't have any in the comments, but I'll unmute our guest on the phone. No questions from anyone?
I'll have another question period before the end too, so you can ponder.
And at any time you can write your question in and we will read it out at the next break and at the end.
Perfect. Okay, so some of the major benefits of iNaturalist are it applies to all living things. So if you're just looking for one app, you can put all your observations on. If you're interested in a lot of things, whether it be birds, vascular plants, insects, it definitely applies to everything. So you can put all your biodiversity observations on the app. It has pretty good artificial intelligence technology. So for things that are a bit easier, like flowering plants or birds, it generally comes up with the correct identification just by using that AI to assess the picture. And even if it doesn't come up with the correct identification, normally it can help narrow it down a bit, or at least kind of direct you where to look. Having a photograph and or audio makes the identification verifiable. So it's nice that you don't necessarily need to know for sure by having that evidence, other people can go on and confirm or make alternative suggestions as well. There's a pretty large community of experts, so like I was saying earlier, lots of people on there looking to identify things. Some of you might be experts in certain areas or just confident in your idea ability in certain areas, and that could be a potential role that you might want to play on iNaturalist, is going through and confirming other people's observations, making suggestions. It's pretty good at providing presence and range data, so it lets us know, what invasive plants are in an area, where is the farthest north observation that we've seen for a certain species, things like that. The information is also publicly available, so it's open source data, anybody can use it, download CSV files of the data that they want to work with. This information gets pulled into the Global Biodiversity Information Center, and CDC uses this information as well. So lots of people are drawing on this. Lots of people go to GBIF for their information. So this information is being used. By contributing to this app, you're contributing to that data. And there's potential use in habitat modeling and research as well. My previous supervisors out of UVic and SFU are actually starting to hire grad students to work on this, how to turn observations into data, how to answer more specific questions that we might have about biodiversity. It's also really fun and interactive. I think this is one of the more important parts. And it really brings people together. You can create projects for specific areas. So if you wanted to create a project for the Williams Lake area and, I don't know, have a weekend BioBlitz, and you could do that. You could see everybody that participated, how many observations they got, how many species they got. You can really use it to make fun, interactive events. There's also Seek by iNaturalist, which is kind of a sub-app. Disclaimer, I've never used it before, but apparently you can just scan the plant or animal with your phone, and it will come up with identifications in real time. So you can show it like the top side, underside of the leaf, things like that, and it will come up with real-time identifications. So I've heard that that one's a great one if you have kids. And you're trying to get them into this, or they are interested in that, they can use Seek by iNaturalist as well. Or they can just use iNaturalist. My previous supervisor's son, he's like 9, and when he goes out, he gets like 50 observations a day, which is impressive for anybody, let alone a 9-year-old. So kids can definitely use this as well. These are just some examples of how observations can make contributions. So this was a new population of oyster plant that was found last summer up on Rose Pit in Haida Gwaii. They knew that they were in that area, but this was a new plant, and the CDC actually took this data, and now it's in their database as well. So it can be used to find out new populations of at-risk species, and also to be potentially change statuses of certain species as well under COSEWIC. And this is another little snail that we found a lot of on Haida Gwaii. It's listed as critically endangered globally, but once we started looking for them, we were actually finding them all over the place in Haida Gwaii. So this is a case where maybe it is critically endangered globally, but perhaps locally abundant in one area. So in that case, you'd want to put extra conservation efforts into that area to take care of that healthy population. And this might be a case where, once people start looking for them, you actually find them all over the place, and maybe they're not actually critically endangered. So all of these observations feed into that. COSEWIC definitely uses iNaturalist and GBIF data to create their status reports. Another example of a gooseneck barnacle. In this case, I just put it up as gooseneck barnacles because I don't know. I'm not necessarily an expert on everything. And then this gooseneck barnacle guy comes in and suggests this as the observation, as the identification. If that is the case, that would be way out of range. and then a new species in Canada. So that's also good to know. In this case, it was on a really big piece of styrofoam, so it probably floated across the ocean. And these things are, yeah, they can be really important, just haphazard observations. Again, this is observation of black knot, farthest northwest observation on iNaturalist. Again, it's good to know it parasitizes cherry trees and dogwoods, so good to know. And there also are challenges with iNaturalist. So some of the challenges are that it does require that photograph or audio of the species. So it's not necessarily great for super elusive species or things that are more discrete. Or if you just can't get a picture or audio of that bird, it can sometimes be frustrating. You can put up observations without a photograph or audio, but they're no longer verifiable and won't be research grade. And when people are using this data, normally they filter by research grade observations. Another kind of challenge is it needs accurate location information when you upload your photos onto the app. This isn't an issue if you're using your phone at all. You can just go onto your photo settings and change it so location services are activated for photos. And then your photos will automatically have location information on them. And when you upload them to the app, it will all be there where you were when you took that photo. If you're using a camera, some cameras do have little GPS trackers in them, but a lot of cameras don't. So the way that I get around this is I use an app called Geotag Photos Pro. For unlimited trips, it's $12. But you can also go onto the web browser version and I think use it for free there. Or you can also, the light version, I think you can do 5 trips free if you just want to try it out first. And what this app does is it takes the time on my phone and the time on my camera, and then it figures out where I was based on the GPS in my phone and uses that to geotag the photos on my camera. So it's actually a really simple process, and I'll show you some pictures of that after this slide. Alternatively as well, if you just kind of remember where if you're not making very many observations and you just kind of remember where you were when you took that photo, you can go on and you can just type in your coordinates, or you can just kind of look and figure out where you were. If you said, oh, I was behind my house when I took that photo, then you can easily just go on and click a spot behind your house and put a little buffer around it within 10 meters or however accurate you think you can be. Another challenge is that it only requires one confirmation to become research grade. I personally think that maybe it should require more than one confirmation, especially because there is anybody can make confirmations. There are certainly a lot of experts on iNaturalist, but there's also a lot of non-experts. And sometimes you'll find that like somebody confirmed your observation, but later on somebody else comes on and says, oh, actually, I don't think it is that anymore. So sometimes you can kind of get false IDs on there. But there's also a lot of people looking at this, and a lot of those false IDs do get corrected at some point. Another limitation at this point is the data is often anecdotal. It's just based on what people are seeing when they're out hiking. It's not necessarily, it's not an experiment. It's not specifically designed to answer any specific research questions. However, like I was saying, there are some labs working on how to turn this large amount of information into data that can answer specific questions. Because even though it's not designed to answer those specific questions, there's just becoming so much data that you kind of almost get that rule of large numbers happening, where your sample size is so big that any kind of inaccuracies and stuff can be filtered out to a certain extent. So this is an example of what the Geotag Photos Pro looks like on my phone. On the left is just a screenshot of starting a trip. Up in the corner, I can just start a trip and I can set my logging interval to whatever I want. I have it for 30 seconds. So every 30 seconds, it's taking a waypoint of where I am, and that's creating a track. And then on the right, I have an example of some of the trips that I've done. So you can see that I have little tracks going for different trips, and it's kept track of where I was at that time. So then what I do is I go on my desktop app on my computer, and up in the left side here, you can see all my trips. I choose whichever trip I wanted, and then I have all my photos that I took during that trip in a folder on my desktop, and then I just click that folder, and it will match the time from the trip to the time on the photos, and then I just click Start Geotagging, and all the photos are geotagged with where I was. So it is pretty simple, this app. I've had a lot of success with it. I would definitely recommend it if you're going to be making large numbers of observations. That way you don't have to go in and manually figure out where you were for each observation. If you're using a camera. Again, if you're using a phone, not an issue at all. They will automatically be geotagged if you have location services on. Okay, any other questions at this point before we get into some applications?
There was one question on if you knew if the setting for the camera and that app was also available and true for Androids.
Yes, yeah, it's for Android and iOS. I'm not sure about anything else, but yeah, it's not limited just to iPhones. So
that was the only question so far.
Okay. Anybody else quickly before I move on? Okay. I will talk about some applications now. Some of the ways that this has been used, one big way has been in that BC Parks iNaturalist project. So I was a part of this project. We put together projects for all of BC Parks and all of the individual parks underneath it. And then there was a team hired through SFU, UVic, and BC Parks. And we went out and we collected a ton of observations in as many provincial parks and protected areas as possible. And this, again, some of these areas, nobody had made observations in. So kind of just the first people on the ground seeing what's there was kind of the goal of the project, and getting people engaged throughout the process. This is a map of where we went in 2019. So you can see we went all over BC, you know, from Vancouver Island to Haida Gwaii to northern BC. We peeked into Watson Lake in the Yukon briefly, and down through the Kootenays. Yeah, it was definitely a great way to get out, see a lot of the province, and we also talked with a lot of citizens throughout it as well, naturalist groups, and really just got people interested in the project and how they can contribute to it. It can also be used in research. So on the site, you can search for specific things. So you can go to filtering when you're searching, and you can select what you're interested in and actually download CSV files of what you're interested in. And in my undergrad research, I used this to generate not at risk species lists to compare to some at-risk species. So in this example that I have up on the screen, I'm looking at research grade threatened arthropods in Liard River Hot Springs Provincial Park. So that's pretty specific search. But I could also do a broader search. If I was interested in research grade introduced vascular plants in Williams Lake, I could also come up with a search for that and download a CSV file. So this is part of it being open to everybody. Anybody can access this information. So this is the example of what I would come up with that search. And one other big application is collaboration, I think. So like I was saying, when we went around BC Parks, we met up with, on the left here, is the Prince George Naturalist Club, or part of the Prince George Naturalist Club. We met up with them, taught them about the app. We worked with quite a few people from BC Parks, worked with specific researchers from CBC, from universities. like I was saying, my supervisor's child came out with us and was able to iNat as well. So it really is for everybody, and that data will always be there to be used as well. Okay, now I'm going to go to a quick tutorial of how to use iNaturalist. So hopefully everyone can still see my screen all right. Just pipe up if you can't for some reason. So this is what the home page looks like when you sign in. And you get all these like updates here of people that you're following. If you go to your profile, you can see your observations, your species, any journal posts you've made. You can also follow people and people can follow you. Go to your observations. It works. You can actually search your observations and filter by certain things. If you've been using it for a while and have a lot of observations, you might need to do specific searches to find observations you're interested about. One kind of fun feature is you have a map of where you've been. Kind of a fun way to keep track of where you've been. Like I said, it doesn't have to be in Canada. It can be anywhere you go. You can also go to your calendar, see big days that you've had, kind of look at them, see how many species you got per day. It's very interactive that way. You can see in 2019, this was when I was working on the project. You also can favorite certain observations, create lists for yourself, make journal posts. I don't have any of those. And go to projects. So these are some projects I've joined. If we go to the BC Parks one, which is the one that I worked on, once it loads, you can see that there's over 200,000 observations that have happened in BC Parks, with over 6,000 species, almost 4,000 identifiers and observers each. And the project has all the parks and protected areas and conservancies in the province are underneath this project. So it's pretty cool that way. You can generate stats for projects, and this is something that can be done at a smaller scale for anything. So you can create Williams Lake 2021 Scout Island BioBlitz. Could be a project, right? And you could have 30 people participated, and look and see what we saw on that day. Kind of an idea I have for the future. You can also go and explore certain species in certain locations. So maybe I'm interested in POA in BC. You can see there's 610 observations of POA bluegrass in BC. You can use that. You can go identify specific things as well. So again, if you're interested in anything like aves, Junction Sheep Range Provincial Park, you can see everything that's happened there. You can go and you can agree if you have the knowledge to do so. And let's go back to dashboard. I just wanted to show you where you can subscribe to certain things as well. So you can subscribe to a certain place in a certain taxa. So this is what some people do. Like, I think there's a couple of global experts on very specific things that subscribe to, they might say everywhere, but just gooseneck barnacles, for example, and then they see all the gooseneck barnacles that come up on their feed. And then I'll show you how to upload a couple pictures. And you can see that I already have that location information. in them because I geotagged them on my app. But if you didn't, you could type in your latitude, your longitude, your accuracy, or you could just click on a certain area and say, you know, you wanted that. And if you didn't know exactly, you could extend it quite a bit to say, I knew it was in this area as well. And then you can load suggestions. This is that AI working. And then you can click on view to look and see what it comes up with. If you think you agree with the suggestions, this is where you can see that taxonomy, similar species you can look at, map of where it's been located, see if it's in range or not, see when it's been observed. Yeah, and I think in this case, I would say that that's probably red juice tooth. And you can see that it's visually similar and seen nearby. There's a lot of other options you can see down here. This is where the AI isn't doing such a great job. At the bottom, it's suggesting spruce growth. So it's definitely not perfect. You need that human component as well. In this case, when I load suggestions, it comes up with a whole bunch of different things. I looked through some of these before the presentation today, and I didn't think any of them were correct. In this case, I don't know my moths and stuff all that well, so I might just put moths, butterflies and moths, and then I can submit my observations. I can also add tags, etc. To them as well. And I actually did submit these yesterday, and already I had some response on them. So I submitted this yesterday in the practice run, and I just put it as butterflies and moths, and then you can see that somebody came in and suggested this genus, which is pretty exciting. And then I can go and I can look at that genus, figure out what I was looking at. You can look at the map of it. And then it made me excited to see that, you know, this was my observation here, the one up in Sweetsmere Park. So not a whole lot of observations in this area, and that was pretty exciting. And then somebody also confirmed my observation of this fungi here. So yeah, there's lots of good uses for that. Definitely just very fun app to use. Yeah, and that's kind of the basic idea of it. I encourage, if you get it, to go around, play on the website. You can also use the app, but the website has a lot more functionality, I think, so I would just go straight to the web page. The thing the phone's good for is if you want to do identifications right in the field, say you're with children and they want to see what it is right now, then you can use the phone app for that as well. Okay, and then, yeah, if you're interested in giving future presentations, please just contact Cassia. Yeah, we're always looking for more people to give lunch and learn events. And then I added in this slide just some general tips for if you're going out and looking at biodiversity, some things that I learned from my summer. If you use a little hand lens with a phone, so if you put the hand lens over top of the phone camera, it actually does a pretty good job at taking macro photos. So the little weevil on the right over here was probably the size of a peppercorn. And I was able to get a pretty good picture of it with the macro lens and my phone. So you don't necessarily need like a fancy macro camera or anything to take good pictures. In general, I found that large fields and sunny days were pretty good for insects, as well as flowers, of course. Campground washrooms and outhouses, also really good for insects. If you wake up in the morning at a campground and go outside the washroom, if there's a light outside the washroom, often you can get moths in the morning. As one of my old coworkers said, these outhouses are gold mines, he said, as he came back after finding quite a few good insects in an outhouse. Mornings and evenings are best for birds and mammals, just more active, of course. If you're looking for reptiles and amphibians, you can flip over rocks and logs. Big flat kind of logs or rocks are generally pretty good. And if you're looking for products to take better pictures and be able to see more interesting animals, BioQuip has really good products. So the picture on the left of that fuzzy little moth there, I used like a special moth light for, and we set up a sheet just in my backyard with a moth light and left it out for a handful of hours, and then we go out and we take pictures of everything on that white sheet. So there's some pretty cool party tricks you can you can have with BioQuip products as well. And another just general tip if you're wanting to look for really cool plants and animals is just to slow down a little bit. I always found that when I sat down for lunch or a snack, or if I took a pee break, that was always when I would see something really cool that I wouldn't have seen otherwise. So those are just some little tips that I have if you're just getting into it. All right, time for questions.
All right, so we had 2 questions come up in chat. The first one is, what happens when you disagree with an identification?
Right, yeah, so if somebody disagrees with so if you make an identification of a species and they disagree and they say it's a different species, iNaturalist will automatically put it to the highest classification that those 2 species have in common. So if they say it's a completely different type of moth than you did, it would automatically go up to moths and butterflies. If you say it's one thing and 2 or 3 people say it's a different species, then it will override your observation and say that it's that species that these other people were agreeing on. Yeah, so it kind of depends. You can actually set your preferences for that as well, depending on how confident you are in yourself. I always have it so yeah, it will just go to a higher order or family if we disagree, and then if more than one person says it's something else, then I have it set so it will say that it is what they suggested. Some people, if they're really confident, they might say, no, my observation stands. But often you can go in and also look and see what they suggested, and a lot of the time people will say, oh yeah, I think you're right, actually. My observation was wrong, and I'll change it. And then you can say that you agree, and it will change what you thought it was. So yeah, it's kind of a bit of a process. It just depends on how many people comment, and yeah.
All right, very cool. And then there was a request. Can you please take us back to the home page regarding how to enter an observation on an iPhone? I guess the app on the iPhone looks very different from your desktop app.
Yeah, sorry, you just want the home page here?
Yeah, and just how to enter observations, if you could go over if it's any different when you're on your iPhone versus when you're on your computer.
Sure, yeah. So the one that I showed you was on the computer, which is the one that I use for the most part. So it's just a little upload button, and then you choose files or drag files from your computer that way. I don't have, I can't show you in the demo what it looks like on the phone just because I don't have my phone on it, obviously, but it does look a fair amount different. It's quite simple on the phone. So the phone is very very basic in terms of what it does. You'll just go on, you'll say there's an observe button, you click observe, you add a picture, and then it will have the suggest identification button on it as well, and it will come up with some options that you can choose. It will automatically have your location. So it has all the same functions for uploading photos. It just doesn't have all the other kind of cool functions that I showed you with like calendar, projects, all that sort of stuff, searching for things specifically. All that functionality isn't as good on the phone, but the basic idea of uploading photos is the same on the phone. Yeah, you're right that the app does look quite different. Yeah, like I said, the app is great for if you're just starting, you're doing a couple observations and you want to see what it is in real time in the field. Yeah, if you want to look it up with kids or as a part of a BioBlitz, but it's definitely more efficient, I think, to use the web page, and it's also like faster uploads on the web page. Yeah, for sure. And then you don't have to even do your identifications in the field either, so I never do my identifications in the field. I always just take pictures of everything and then figure it out later. Yeah, does that help? I wish I could like show you exactly what it looks like on the phone as well, but
yeah, it's hard when your presentation was built for the desktop version. I'm just going to unmute our guests on the phone because if they're on the phone, they don't have the ability to type in. So just to give you guys that heads up, your phone is being unmuted. So if you have a question, you can go ahead. And then what was else? Can you upload more than one picture of the same observation?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So when you go to upload, you can, let's just do this here. I can put my observations in. And say that these were the same species. I just took multiple pictures. I can drag, and then there's 2 photos attached to it. And you can click on them and then say combine as well. Let's just remove that for a second. If I click on both of them, you can also do it this way, say combine. So yeah, you can take, I think it's like up to like 8 photos or maybe even 10 of the same thing. So if you need multiple angles to get a positive ID, you can combine them that way. Or if you're just really excited about it and want to put 3 pictures of it up from different angles for aesthetic reasons, you can do that too.
All right. Did we have any more questions? Anyone on the phone have a question?
Hi, it's Leslie here. I just wanted to tell you how interesting this was. And while you were presenting, I downloaded the app and got some photos uploaded, and it was really easy to do and so much fun. So thank you so much for sharing this. I love it.
Yay! That's so great to hear. I'm glad. Yes, everybody, who's interested should join it. And I've found it really fun and useful. And you can totally upload old photos too. So if you have something that you're excited about that you took pictures of a long time ago, you can go through and upload those as well.
Okay. All right. Well, if that's the end of your presentation, I will just again give a bit of a spiel that we are working on our next set of presentations already. We do kind of take a month to recover and then plan for the next one. I don't have a title yet as we're still figuring out who's up next, but look for another professional development event coming out in late October, November sometime. And then we'll start again in the new year. So if anyone would like to talk about something they're passionate about, please get a hold of me or anyone you see on the committee team, and we will organize an event for you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Kiara. That was awesome.
Great, thank you. Talk to you guys later.
Thank you, Kiara. Great presentation.